Thank you. If y'all would look, we do have minutes from the last meeting, and we can get them approved. Do we need, I see August and September. Do we need, and October. So y'all want, for all three sets? Well, you read quick. So I do have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Jackson. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? We have finally got the minutes approved there. All right, gentlemen, we appreciate you being here bright and early this morning. Please come up to the table. Y'all have been here before, well, maybe not this one before, but you've been in committees before. Make sure that green button is super bright. There you go. And introduce yourselves for the record.
My name is Kent Annis. I'm the Division Director of the Division of Geographic Information, the Geographic Information Officer for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and we're situated in the Commonwealth Office of Technology.
Thank you. My name is Boyd Shearer. I am the Assistant Director of the Kentucky Division of Geographic Information. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here, and whenever you're ready, please continue.
Righty. Okay, it's not clicking. Maybe the mouse is not. There we go. A little bit of background here on KY from above. This is the aerial mapping program in the state. And as we go through these, you'll see some select aerial photography that we've pulled out of the last acquisition. This is the Cumberland Gap Tunnel, for example. So, the mission of the KY from above effort was to build a common and openly accessible set of aerial photography and elevation-based map resources that meet the needs of all government agencies. We began the effort in 2011 mainly because there was duplicative spending we were seeing. We were seeing both the cities and counties and the state government spend money on the same geographies. So we were paying multiple times for the same area, and we wanted to really cut down on that. And at that time, we implemented an economies of scale approach. That is, we instituted a pricing model so that the more square miles you're flying, the cost per square mile goes down. So a county-based acquisition is going to cost a whole lot more than if you do a big region on the per square mile basis. Contiguous areas, county-based planning acquisitions. Once again, if you've got contiguous areas, a big group of counties, for example, it's a lot cheaper to fly it per square mile because you're not going back and forth across just one given county. You're covering a large geographic area. To date, there are now 28 program partners. A lot of folks have participated in the program since 2011. All the data since its inception has been owned by the Commonwealth and has been distributed in the public domain. So not only can state government agencies get to it, but local government agencies, federal government agencies, and anybody in the private sector for that matter. Certainly not going to go through all those, but there's the alphabet soup there of acronyms. You know, these are all the people over the years who've contributed in one way or another. Maybe it was just for their city or county, or maybe it was for a multi-county region. You know, you've got a lot of federal agencies in there too. Everybody from TVA and FEMA. It's NRCS is a big one, and of course USGS and the Forest Service. The image there in the background is some of the LIDAR data. That's in the Palisades region. And you can see a lot of those little pock holes there, those little round holes are the karst topography in that part of the state. We see this as an investment in Kentucky, especially because it supports the have-nots. This type of program, you know, Lexington, Louisville, Northern Kentucky, Paducah, those folks, they've been flying this stuff for years, and they're going to continue to do it unless we can align with their flight schedule. But it's all of these small communities. You know, we've got 400-something cities in this state, and it's a lot of these small communities. They'll never have access to this type of stuff if somebody doesn't do it for them. So it empowers these smaller communities, and it gives us seamless statewide coverage. We don't just have county by county coverage that can be turned on and off. It's seamless. As we know, emergencies don't stop at county boundaries. Road projects don't stop at county boundaries. Infrastructure in general, all of those kind of things, those span county lines, jurisdictional boundaries. So having seamless statewide coverage is important. It provides a lot of value to the private sector. Surveying and engineering community, construction community specifically. Once again, economies of scale savings, because the more we're buying, the lower the price per square mile. A lot of local partner benefits there in terms of being able to get direct access to the data. Supports a lot of education and research, and once again, distributed in the public domain. Also, this data meets or exceeds the state specifications. And these aren't specifications we came up with in a vacuum. These are specifications that are built up on top of what the federal government has and what other states around us and across the nation utilize. And there's extremely high return on investment with this program. Once again, just want to underscore, the data is owned by the Commonwealth. So in 2023, Washington State did a study, and their ROI was $7.35 return on investment over 6 years for every dollar spent. And I used this slide about a year and a half ago, and my counterpart from Indiana was in the room. And she said, "Hey, Kent, hold on." She's like, "We just did a study, and ours was over 20 to 1. She said, "That's what they came up with in Indiana. It's over a 20 to 1 return on investment." Government use cases, transportation and engineering. There isn't a road built in this state that doesn't utilize this data. And by the way, that image there in the background was taken during the floods. Environmental protection and regulation, wildlife and habitat management, infrastructure funding and planning, recreation and tourism, broadband planning, property taxation, economic development, law enforcement, NG 911, and probably most importantly, emergency response. This data really comes to bear in those situations. And you've got to have the before picture to make sense of what happened after. You've got to have that snapshot beforehand if you're really going to be able to hit the ground running in a response and mitigation effort. Private sector and utility use cases. Once again, there isn't anything being built, designed in this state that isn't leveraging this data. Construction, once again, if it's designed, they're going to construct it using this information that they've extracted during the design process. Surveying. This group of professionals across the state is really getting a lot of value out of this data set. Environmental consultants, agricultural tiling and drainage. Wasn't even aware of this until about 18 months ago. They're using the LIDAR data, especially out in western Kentucky and a lot of these flat bottoms in south central Kentucky, to go in there and figure out how to tile these fields so they can get in them sooner in the season, and didn't even know these guys were even utilizing this data until a few months ago. Fencing and roofing contractors. They can go in and look at your house or look at your property and do a cost estimate on how many feet of fencing, how long the gutter's going to need to be, without ever having to go to your property. They can do it sitting right there in their office. Then they can show up with a quote in hand. Never visited there. Electric utilities. Once again, this was a use case. We knew they were using it in terms of base maps, but what they're doing with this oblique imagery is really unique because they can see all the poles, they can see all their infrastructure, and it really gives them a good feel or a good situational awareness before they send a crew out in the field to respond. Wastewater utilities are using it, water utilities, oil and gas, especially inspectors here in the state, lots of folks. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but we did a community survey. We opened it up in mid-May and we closed it out in August. And once again, we were pretty amazed by some of the comments we got here. I'll just pull a few out, but without this, we would be forced to spend thousands of dollars a year to get a product that doesn't match the quality provided by your organization. The uses are limitless, from route surveying and utilities to potential land development and land use. This tool, I call it a tool because it's more valuable than just data. It's invaluable. Losing these data sets would be a significant detriment to us. Access to up-to-date, high-res, and accurate imagery is essential to maintaining and updating our utility infrastructure. We got 100+ responses, and nearly every one looked like this. Organizational support efforts. Kentucky Association of Mapping Professionals, the Kentucky Association of Professional Surveyors, and the Geographic Information Advisory Council have all signed off on either doing a resolution or a letter of support, and I believe some of those have been sent to legislators. The imagery program. We achieved statewide coverage of just ortho imagery, just top-down view, in 2022. So not from the side, just top-down. Took 4 years to do that. That was all done with agency funds, all done with agency partners. We received general funds in the 2022 through 2024 budget for the Phase 3 imagery. We use that to acquire both ortho and oblique imagery at a 3-inch resolution statewide. No other state to date has met that milestone. We're the only state in the nation that has this quality of data. The governor's proposed budget last time continued the funding for the refresh of the oblique imagery, but it was not included in the final enacted budget. Imagery funding. The investment to date, $21 million plus. Phase 1, we didn't quite complete that, a little under $2 million. It was only a 1-foot resolution back then. Phase 2, a little under $3 million for 6-inch. Once again, just the top-down view. Phase 3, $16,871,000. $17 million of that came in through an appropriation in the 22 regular session. The carryover of funds was not approved. We only received $11.5 million of that, but we found a way to plug the hole and finish the western part of the state, because that's the part of the state that wouldn't have been finished. The elevation program. Achieved statewide coverage of Phase 1 LiDAR in 2017. We were one of the first in a handful of states to pull that off. Phase 2 was completed in 2024, so we just wrapped that up fairly recently. In Phase 3, we initiated a little bit early. We weren't even finished with Phase 2, and it was initiated because of the Kentucky floods, in eastern Kentucky. And the feds came to us and said, hey, if you can come up with a little bit of money, we'll cover the rest of it, because we need to see the before and after on these floods. And so we got into Phase 3 a little early. There were no legislative appropriations were used for any of those acquisitions, and very few states at all have completed 2 phases to date. This is an interesting image in the background here. This is in northern Kentucky, I think Kenton County, and this is just the ground surface. I think what's cool about it, though, is you can see where the railroad tunnels go through the hill here. Pretty neat stuff. Unfortunately, federal cuts have impacted our seed funding for this program, and without seed funding, we can't go after the federal dollars. We have to have state dollars to go there. 6 counties will be flown in 2026 using the last set of USGS funds. So, and those are the 6 counties that we're going to pick up, those that are in orange. And you can see that's about how much we've got completed on Phase 3 thus far. We're really going to try to work our way down the river first. It's what we try to do, because those are the most flood-prone areas, and then we go back and try to fill in the rest of the state. After 2026, there are no acquisitions planned because there is no more funding. So elevation funding, investment to date, a little over $19 million. Phase 1, and I think these are some interesting numbers, $11 million plus. Notice that Phase 2 was less. The technology got better, the sensors got better, they were able to fly higher and still get the same quality of data, so thus the price went down. So, we try to get this out and go through procurement on a regular basis so we can drive the pricing down. Phase 3, little under $1 million so far. It'll probably be closer to 7 to finish it all up. Phase 3 imagery by the numbers. We had 1 contractor with 8 subs and a lot of surveyors. And the surveyor part is very important here. There's a lot of firms that come in and fly. They never set ground and never set foot in the state. They don't have any surveyors. They're not doing any ground control. Sure, it's a nice picture from a plane, and it does show you what's on the ground very clearly, but its horizontal accuracy is not such that we're going to use it to build a road with, or to put a water line in the ground, or something like that. There were 2,600 flight lines flown, at just a little bit under 6,000 foot. That's where they're flying. 117,000 total miles flown for that particular project in the 2-year period. 46,660 square miles captured, and it was completed in only 2 years. And when that funding came through in that appropriation, I was very skeptical. I was very skeptical whether it could be done in 2 years. We can only fly when the leaves are off the trees. We can only fly when the sun angle is correct. You can't fly during the middle of winter. So you've got about a 3-week period in November, and then starting up in late February until the leaves come on the trees, and we usually can't even make it to Derby Day. That's your flying period in Kentucky. You can't fly any other time. We don't want any leaves on the trees. It obscures things on the ground. We have to be able to do it during that period. And the fact that it was pulled off in 2 years is pretty spectacular. The status of that imagery, it was completed in spring of 2024. Final processing and deliverables came to us in early 2025. The imagery is not licensed. That was in accordance with the procurement that we put out. We wanted to make sure that, once again, the state owned the data, that everybody could see it. It meets or exceeds Kentucky's adopted standards. Once again, it's owned by the Commonwealth. It's freely distributed on Amazon in the public domain. It's available to everyone, no use restrictions at all. And by centralizing the storage and distribution, we've really reduced duplicative spending on those particular items. The cost to store this data and serve it up is not insignificant. Program funding outlook. There was no reauthorization of funds for additional imagery acquisitions or carryover of unexpended funds in the 24 regular session. We have no state agency funding commitments for imagery or elevation acquisitions. And federal funds cannot be leveraged without a state match. So program funding outlook is not great. Funding needs. Consistent funding in the form of legislative appropriation for aerial photography and elevation data is needed for this necessary government expense. We need about $300,000 a year of seed money so that we can go after the federal money. Okay, we need that, and then we can. There have been years when we've started out with $250,000 and we've turned that into $3 million. But we've got to have that money to start with. Okay, there's a lot of agencies out there that will throw some money in, but you've got to have that seed money to get going. For the ortho and oblique imagery, that's the top-down view and the view from 4 sides, it's $5.7 million a year if you're doing a 3-year refresh cycle. And the reason for the 3-year refresh cycle is that we want to make sure that we are aligning with Louisville, Lexington, Northern Kentucky, and those other areas. Because last time, for example, Louisville saved $350,000. They didn't have to fly. They just used our imagery. So we want to make sure we align with their expenditures and their cycles. Storage and processing is running at about $150,000 a year. So, and those costs we expect to remain pretty stable. So that's what we're looking at for a year in terms of the budget request. Any questions?
All right. Well, thank you. My question was going to be, what's the ask? But you finished it at the very end of the presentation there. The $300,000 to go after Fed money. What could that bring in? I mean, would $300,000 bring in $3 million? What's the match on that?
It really depends on how many locals come to the table that time. A lot of times, if a good example would be is we got $250,000 from Division of Water, and then we got $500,000 from Transportation Cabinet. We then went to DLG and got local matching funds, turned that into $1.5 million. We then went to NRCS and USGS and said, hey, we got $1.5 million. They came up with about $1.4 million. We ended up with $2.9 million, but you had to have that $250,000 that we got from Division of Water to even start the process.
Gotcha.
And, by laying that $250,000 on the table, Transportation said, hey, we got a little extra, we'll throw in. So once again, just getting that money on the table to start is really what will get us going in terms of LiDAR.
Gotcha. All right, we do have just a couple questions from some of our members. And Senator McDaniel, Glad to have you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Guys, thanks for the presentation. On your final number of $6.5 million, is that an actual general fund request, or is that a total request that could be offset by the federal appropriation?
No, it's 6.15 million, and no, that would be just for the aerial photography and the seed money for LiDAR. The feds aren't going to put any money into aerial photography. They quit putting money into aerial photography in about 2012 or 2013.
Okay.
And they started putting all their money into the LiDAR data, into the elevation data. So,
And then you referenced the ability for private companies to use this as well as other governmental agencies to use this.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any kind of a subscription that's required to this, or it's just provided it for free right now?
no subscription. No
It
subscription.
would seem to me that would be a reasonable request, especially if you have a for-profit organization utilizing it for free. What's the ability to set something like that up?
I don't think there's, that's not a model that we're seeing out there across the nation. I mean, there are private firms that you can go to and get a subscription. You're not going to get this data. You're not going to get this quality data. This data, since its inception, all of this data has been in the public domain. So nothing has changed in that regard. And that's not different from, North Carolina's got a 4-year cycle. Michigan's got a 5-year cycle. They're a little bit bigger. Massachusetts, same sort of thing. It's all in the public domain.
So you're opposed to charging for the use of this data, even for for-profit companies?
Yeah, I think it's economic development. I mean, talk to the engineers and surveyors.
I'm not asking that. I'm just asking your opinion. You oppose that idea?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Representative Hale, you're okay? Any other? Representative Watkins.
Thank you very much. I'm curious about this. I'm familiar with more GIS systems from Louisville when it comes to our logic maps. Mm-hmm. To piggyback off of the line of questions, am I to understand correctly that you are not interested in a cost share model with other agencies?
No, that is not. That's not what I said. No, there is a cost share model, and those 28 program partners over the years, those are the cost share. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Logic saved $350,000. Yeah, Kurt Bynum and Tricia and Logic, that's how much they saved the last round because of this project.
Yep.
They didn't have to pay for a subscription, which is what they were doing. Yeah, and you've got a lot of these counties that are paying for a subscription, and multiple people are paying for a subscription for the same geography.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Just a really quick follow-up, Mr. Chair. On your data refresh cycle, was the imagery every 3 years and elevation every 6?
Yes. And you always want your elevation program, and we are ahead of your aerial photography program, because your elevation, that data is used to provide the horizontal and vertical accuracy we need in this data to build roads, to put water lines in the ground, to do broadband planning. That sort of accuracy is needed. And without the elevation data, I was gung-ho in 2011, let's go fly aerial photography. And everybody that was a lot smarter than me said, no, Kent, back off. We got to get ahead on the elevation data first. And they were right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Last chance. Anyone else have any questions or comments or anything? Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate bright and early 9 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes our agenda. We appreciate this is where our two agencies here are sort of kind of get divorced. General government and finance and personnel and public retirement. We part ways now, and then we're getting ready to go into session. So I know we'll have some budget requests, but we appreciate everyone and let's give a hand for our staff here for doing this all year. So, for putting up with us this early in the morning there. So. All right. If there's no other business, I'll have a motion to adjourn. All right. So move. Thanks, guys and girls.
Thank you. Mark's in the house.
Thank you.
Market went down a little bit yesterday. Good games this year too.
I'm not sure how that should look. Hmm. I've never used this kind. Foxit PDF reader. Hmm. Oh well. I'm not sure how to. I would do one page. Let's see if it'll just go. That's not very easy. I guess they know what to do. I hope. Oh, here it is. Okay, let's see. Surely they'll know how to use it.
Well, they sent it over.
Okay, so there's that one.
All right, do you need anything else?
No, thank you, Emma. Thank you for taking those up. Did you put them up there by me? Thank you. Okay, and then I'm gonna put this one in slideshow mode.